The Gospel according to Mark, chapter 4, read from the Remedy. On another day, when Jesus was teaching at the lake shore, the crowd grew so large that he got into a boat, pushed back from shore, and spoke to the people who gathered at the water's edge. He used a variety of parables to teach them. He said, "Consider the meaning of this. A farmer went out to plant seed. He scattered his seed broadly. Some fell on the road, and the birds gobbled up the seed immediately. Some of the seed fell in gravel without much soil. Though it sprouted quickly, because the soil was shallow, it didn't penetrate deeply into the soil. So when the sun came up, the young sprouts couldn't take the heat and withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns and weeds, which grew up and choked the good plants before they could mature and bear fruit. But some of the seed reached good soil, where it took root, grew up, and produced an abundant harvest, multiplying up to 100 times what was planted." Jesus looked at them and said, "Those whose minds are open to truth, let them understand the meaning." Later, when he was alone, 12 ambassadors and others devoted to his cause asked him about his parables. He told them, "The truth about God's kingdom of love, which to many seems mysterious, has been revealed to you, because your hearts are open to the truth. But those whose hearts are not open to truth, I speak in parables, so even though they see with their eyes, their minds do not comprehend. And though they hear with their ears, they do not understand the meaning. If they did understand, then they would turn to me in trust, and I would heal them." So Jesus said to them, "Don't you understand that this illustration demonstrates that God's kingdom operates upon natural law, design protocols for life? If you don't understand this, you will misunderstand all my illustrations. The farmer plants the words of truth into the hearts of people. Some people have hearts that are hard and callous, like a road, and they don't respond to the truth when it is presented. They hear the truth, but they don't consider it seriously. Satan distracts them with some temptation or problem, and the truth is forgotten. Other people have hearts like gravel, shifting and unstable. They respond with excitement to every new idea, but nothing takes root. And since the truth doesn't take root in their hearts, they only stay involved briefly. As soon as the truth requires some sacrifice or actual work on their part, they quit and move on to their next emotional fix. There are other people who have minds like soil filled with weeds and thorns. They hear the truth, but the thorns of worry and fear, or the weeds of seeking healing of heart in fame, fortune, or other earthly desires, choke out truth and love, and make their hearts desolate. But there are those whose hearts are like fertile soil. They hear the truth, comprehend it, love it, embrace it, nurture it, choose it, and build on it, and it heals, transforms, and renews them, causing them to produce fruits of righteousness even more than 100 times what was planted in them." Then Jesus asked them, "Do you bring in a lantern only to cover it with a bucket, or put it under a bed so its light won't be seen? Or do you instead hang it from the ceiling, or put it on a stand, so that its light will penetrate widely? What has been hidden by Satan's lies is meant to be revealed, and whatever is concealed by misunderstanding, confusion, or ignorance is intended to be brought out into the open, for all to see and understand. Those whose minds are open to truth, let them understand the meaning. Pay attention and understand the way God's kingdom works. Behavior has consequences. The standard you use to judge others reveals the actual condition of your own heart. Thus, your condemnation of others is really condemnation of yourself. Whoever accepts and holds God's love and truth in their heart will receive more. But whoever refuses God's love and truth, whatever have been poured out upon them, will eventually taken back. He continued with another example. God's kingdom of love operates upon natural law built right into nature, and therefore it is like this. A person spreads seed on the ground. Once the seed is spread, regardless of what the person does, watches it or sleeps, the seed sprouts and grows, even though the person cannot explain how. Without help from any human, the soil produces grain, and it develops naturally in a predictable course. First a stalk, then a head, and then full kernels in the head. And when the grain is ripe, then it is cut, for harvest time has come. Jesus told them another example. What is God's kingdom of love like? What illustration should I use to help you understand it? It starts out small, like a mustard seed, planted in the soil of the heart. But when it takes root and grows, it becomes the largest of all the plants in the garden of the heart, with such big branches of love that everyone, like birds of the air, can perch in its shade and find sanctuary and rest. Jesus taught them with many illustrations, stories, metaphors, and parables, endeavoring to help them understand the true nature of God's kingdom of love. He didn't speak to the general public without using illustrations and parables, but when he was with his disciples in private, he explained everything to them. Later that day, shortly after sunset, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's cross the lake." So they left the crowds, climbed into a boat, and headed across the lake, and other boats followed them. A fierce storm blew up, and the waves were so high they crashed into the boat, nearly sinking it. Jesus was asleep on a cushion in the stern. The disciples, some of whom were fishermen and were quite experienced with boating, were terrified and woke Jesus, crying out to him, "Master, we're drowning. Don't you care what happens to us?" Jesus calmly stood up and instructed the wind and the waves to calm down. "Stop blowing and be still." And the wind immediately stopped blowing, and it was completely calm, and the water was tranquil. He spoke gently to his disciples and asked, "Why are you so frightened? Do you still have difficulty trusting me?" They were stunned with awe and asked each other, "Who is he? He has power over the wind and sea,